In the last week, it really started to feel like fall is officially here. There's still pockets of summer here and there, but that all changes this week. Our first frost is later this year, and I've slowly been doing garden cleanup to get ahead of the cold weather that's coming our way. Wrapping up the season is always bittersweet. I'm ready for the slower season ahead, but always sad to see my vision for the year coming to a close. I am going to bring these inside. This is my cilantro. I have another cilantro as well I'm gonna bring in. And then this is my white sage. This is not a perennial here. It's a perennial in more warmer areas. So I'm gonna bring it inside under my lights over winter and keep it going. Okay, so plan for the day is to get garlic planted. But before I do that, I'm actually gonna go around and try to weed as much as I possibly can. I know weeding is not fun, but this will really help come springtime when you don't have weeds overwintering in your soil. And we just got a bunch of rain over the last 2 days, so this is perfect time while the soil is loose. It's just a lot easier to be able to grab the entirety of the root. So I'm gonna go through and weed first, but my plans kind of changed a little bit on the garlic. So I originally cleaned out these 4 beds with you guys last week, and I was gonna plant some garlic along the sides of the trellis here, but I really wasn't that excited about that plan because this area here, those 2 front beds, I love planting like sunflowers and a lot of flowers and just make it a very inviting space. And I love garlic, but I love flowers just in that front space. It just brings a lot of color. So what I'm going to do, I think I will have just enough where I can plant those 2, the back garden beds, these 8x4s, all hard neck, and then I can devote this little strip here soft neck. That is one reason why I went ahead and cleared this. I also just cleared it because we are actually having a week of frost. So typically we will have like 1 or 2 days and then it'll get really, really warm, and we are supposed to warm back up after this stretch, but that is a lot of cold weather all at once. So we actually have 1 day where our high is 39 degrees. We are going to get pretty cold. So I'm actually just going to devote as much time outside as I possibly can today to try to get as much done as I can, just to kind of get ahead of everything, because at that point we'll be into mid-November, and then at that point we are starting holidays, and I really just want to go ahead and knock out as much as possible. The one thing I'm not going to do today is my trellis. I'm really not wanting to touch this until the very last second because I love the trellis and it really does add so much privacy to the backyard. So I'm not going to touch that. But another thing I might need to do today is get the broccoli ready for like a hard freeze. We're going to get cold. I think we're supposed to get down to like 23. So I am going to cover a few of the frost tolerant things just to be safe, since we are going to get cold. Yeah, I was not expecting a whole week of this. We didn't have a stretch of weather like this until almost end of November last year. I checked. It's always interesting how no matter what I expect, the weather always keeps me on my toes. Every year is so different. Apparently it's supposed to get decently windy and I can feel it picking up already. While I was going through everything, that one little side area had like 20-ish grubs. So I was really curious if any of the other areas did, and they didn't. But the one thing about that area, that's where the most crabgrass or Bermuda grass has been all season long, and these were all around the roots. So if you don't know, grubs will actually feed on the roots of plants and they turn into June bugs. So I'm just going to go ahead and give these to the chickens. Here, girls, I got a treat for you. It's a special treat today. You ready? There you go. All right, so I've been getting questions on the chickens lately. So I did address this very lightly in a few different videos, but I really haven't just talked about it. So here's what went on with my chickens. I had a flock of 8 birds, and I ended up having just so many issues with them, to be honest. Once winter got over, I could not figure out what was going on with my flock. It was just bullying and pecking issues after another. And I was trying to address it because initially I thought it was mostly a space issue. Maybe they needed more space. They were bored. They needed more stimulation. So I tried to fix that. That didn't help. It ended up turning into, okay, well, is it a nutrition problem at this point? And I really didn't think it was a nutrition problem because they had access to oyster shells, grit. They got good treats. They got high protein. So I really just could not figure out what was going on. And it just became such a thing where some of my more dominant girls were trying to mount my other girls, and it just became a pecking rip out fight, and some of my girls could never find peace. And I actually couldn't break up my current flock in my current surroundings. So that's kind of the unfortunate thing about living where I live is I have a cap of 12 birds, and I also don't have that big of a coop. This is maxed out for about 6 to 8 birds. And it's one of those things where if I wanted to integrate into the flock, I would definitely need that much more room. And my fencing area didn't help. I don't have the fencing area out at the moment with the new ladies because I was actually having a hawk problem, which I'll get into in a second. But the older ladies, I was just having issue after issue, and it really honestly got to the point where I was so over them having issues. They were all still laying eggs and they all seemed relatively healthy. So I have no idea what truly went on. But what ended up happening was our friends have 5 acres and they ended up just taking them to their house. So we always had a plan in case we ended up getting a rooster, because we also can't have roosters where we're at. And our friend, if we ever had an issue with a chicken, is able to butcher our chicken, all of that. So they went to go live on this 5 acres. They've been doing great. We got updates. They have access to other hens, roosters, all other spaces. They really just needed to be broken up, and I couldn't personally do that. So our friends are very willing to take chickens off our hands when we need that, which is a very fortunate thing. And I think anyone who's getting into chicken keeping should have that thought in their head on if something happens, what to do. But we do plan on having meat chickens one day. So as much as I love these birds and I could take really good care of them, honestly, they are more of a food source to me other than a pet, which was kind of hard for me to wrap my head around. And when I first initially got these ladies, I was really sad for like a whole week or two because I knew the fate of my other girls, like they were going to be leaving. They are alive. They are living on the farm. They did not get butchered. But it is one of those things where it is just the cycle of life. And when you are gardening and taking care of chickens or doing any type of homesteading, you are really faced with the seasons of life often. So I got these girls. I have 7 of them. I have 2 Wyandottes, and then the other 5 are all Rhode Island Reds. So I also was reading up. My other girls were combinations of Isa Browns and Golden Commons, and I was reading more on a hybrid bird. And these hybrid birds are they're mostly either bred for meat purposes or egg purposes. And the meat birds, they really truly can't live past like 8 to 12 weeks because at that point, like they're so heavy that it's really not a humane life. And then the egg producers, they produce so many eggs within that first 1.5 to 2 years that they really start to have health problems after that, which is something I really didn't know going into chicken keeping. So yeah, so that's kind of the gist on what happened here. I don't have my extended fence out or anything because, again, like I mentioned, when I first let these girls out about 4, I think they've been in the coop now about 3.5 weeks. That first week I was having a hawk that just kept cycling around, and I ended up coming out one day and catching the hawk near the bottom of the coop trying to get after the girls, and the girls were so scared. Poor things. But they are still a little too little. I really want to have this space take a break since they are so young at the moment. They really don't need any more extra space. But I might give them access to little pockets throughout the winter and while I'm doing cleanup and such. But yeah, they're chilling. They're a good group of girls. They finally started to get used to me. My other ladies, that was one thing I missed. So we got rid of my other girls in enough time where I could flip the coop, where I could stay in the coop, get more sand for the coop and all of that. And it was so quiet out here. I hated it. Walking out into the garden during the end of summer was so sad because I was so used to my chickens. I was so used to seeing them making their noises, and I loved it so much. And there was like a few week gap where I didn't put these girls out yet, but these girls are finally starting to adjust to me, and it's been so much fun. I really honestly love having chickens, but I was initially a little hesitant to talk about it when when I was so deep in my feelings of getting the new girls and knowing the other girls were going away, just because it is one of those touchier subjects when you're talking about any type of food related animal. And I just wanted to be a little sensitive to that, but I've been getting a lot of the questions. So I kind of just wanted to give you kind of what happened, because if you're wanting to get into chicken keeping, it is something to keep note that this is a big learning year for me, and I'm still trying to learn everything when it comes to chickens. And honestly, I am someone that learns as I go. So until a problem really arises, I can't really like figure out the problem fully. But I have had really good luck with the girls, outside of like the bullying and just pecking issue I was dealing with my other flock. It was honestly so obnoxious, but yeah. All right, so there's a few different things I am doing different with garlic this year. So I am planting closer to 8 inches out. There's a few areas I squeezed in 6 inches, but in the past I was always closer to 6 to 8. I really wanted to measure out 8 inches apart to try to get bigger heads this year. So another thing I'm doing is I'm also waiting just a little bit longer to plant. This is the latest I've ever planted. I was gonna try to go a little bit longer, but with that cold coming in, I'm gonna go ahead and do this now. Another thing I'm gonna do differently is come like springtime. So I've been pretty good about feeding my plants, but not as often as I have recently read. So once green growth starts happening in the spring, at that point, I will start hitting this garlic with some blood meal. So that is going to give them a nitrogen fix to continue to put on those greens and hopefully more layers in the garlic and the paper shells. And then I will switch it to bone meal to give more of a bulb development a little bit after. So I was mostly feeding with bone meal and not necessarily blood meal, and I was reading that blood meal can be a huge benefit in those beginning growth stages. So that's another thing I'm going to do a little bit differently. So since I am planting so far apart, we'll see exactly how much I can get planted. I'm really curious just to see how some things will honestly go. So we shall see. I wanted to give them more space than crowding, because I have crowded in the past and that wasn't something I really wanted to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start with chestnut and start breaking this apart. My plan is to do 4 different quadrants of all the hardneck and then put my softneck in the other area. We'll see exactly how much I get planted. I ordered a lot, so I might have to eat some of this. To go over some of the varieties I'm doing again, I have chestnut red, I have northern white, Italian purple, and Georgian fire. And then my soft neck variety, I'm gonna butcher this again. Someone even told me how to pronounce it in the comments last week. Inchelium red. I don't know, it's a tough word, but I'll put it across the screen. Those are the varieties I'm going to be doing. I'm mostly establishing varieties I have grown in the past, minus the soft neck. I guess that's another thing I'm doing differently this year. I am trying to grow a soft neck variety for the first time. So that is going to be an exciting thing. I love chestnut, and that is what I'm going to plant right here. So when it comes to planting, you do want them to be pointy side up. The flat side that has more of, hold on, let me give you an example here. Wow, these have some really thick skins. You will want to put hardneck garlic in the ground like this. You see the base right there? This is where the roots come out of the hardneck, and this is where the greens come out from the hardneck. And then a good rule of thumb is about double the clove in the ground. And then at that point, I will get everything covered up and then watered, and then I will also go ahead and mulch today. Also, any smaller cloves that are in the head, I'm not going to plant. I'm going to pull these apart and plant all of the bigger cloves. Like this one's really skinny. I will just eat those, especially since I'm probably going to have some extras today since I spaced everything more apart. Here's a good example of clove difference. I will just use this one in the kitchen, and this one here will get planted. The bigger the clove going in, the bigger the head coming out. So now I can just go through and take the cloves and place them into each hole, making my life a lot easier. The prep work is definitely a lot of work, but planting garlic is definitely a lot of work. But after you plant it, it's definitely a set it and forget it type of crop, which I always really enjoy. I also like the fact that to preserve it, you really don't have to do much other than simply cure it. So there's no like canning or anything like that. I do like to freeze dry garlic though, and I do want to make a good amount of powder. I know I'm going to definitely have some extra garlic that I could plant around. So I might double check my plans, and I might plant a secondary round. I don't know yet. We'll see exactly how this week goes, but I would like to plant out more if I can. My problem is I don't have enough space. I really wanted to just devote like 2 garden beds and whatnot, but I'm really starting to run out of space. I really need more space. All right, so with the northern white, I didn't have that much of it anyway, and a few of the heads I just opened were starting to go bad. There was some molding, as you can see here, and they came right apart from their skins. So I'm actually just not going to plant any of the northern white. I might just plant more chestnut in its place because I really, really love chestnut, and that's honestly probably one of my absolute favorites. Let's do Georgian fire. Ooh, look at this one. This one looks like it has some massive cloves. Hardneck garlic has a lot of flavor, but again, it doesn't store as well. So if you're new to garlic or have never grown it before, there's 2 different kinds of garlic. There's soft neck and there's hard neck. And hard neck, wow, that might be the biggest clove I've ever seen. Okay, so hard neck is one of those that does not store as well. Soft neck is the one you typically see in the grocery store, but if you can ever, wow, this one's even bigger. Look at that. And this isn't even like any type of elephant garlic, so that's really exciting. Wow, so that one head alone was only 4 cloves. That's insane. So I actually might be able to plant more chestnut in the one area. We will see. But where I'm at in zone 6, you can almost get away with growing both of them. I've always read hardneck is more suggested because in my area, we definitely get really cold. Last December, we had feel likes of -40, and all of my garlic did really well. So, wow, these cloves are literally, I don't think I've ever seen, these are literally crazy. Holy crap, when I thought the cloves couldn't get any bigger. Jeez Louise. So out of 4 heads of garlic, I have like, what, 21 cloves. So I'm going to work my way backwards and fill this space with the Georgian fire. And then if I have any more space, I will fill that with more chestnut red that I have. That way I just have 2 varieties in here. Next, I have some Italian purple, and it's like a really pretty stripy type of garlic. And here is my soft neck variety. You can see these are some pretty big heads of garlic as well, but there should be layers of cloves in these ones. See? Okay, I need to make the spacing for all of this. And if I have any extra room, I might plant a few more hard necks if I have the space. But so far I got all of that planted and I'm really happy. So this ended up being the perfect amount of soft neck garlic for this little space here. There's 33 planted, and then in each bed I have 66 and 66. So with doing the extra spacing, I definitely have a lot less garlic currently planted. This is 165 cloves in a space like this. Prior, I did 200, 230 in 2 garlic beds, and they were really crammed and my heads weren't that big. So I'm really curious I'm gonna reevaluate some of my garden plans, and I might try to plant out another area, but if I don't, I'm pretty happy with this. What I'm gonna do is cover this up. I'm going to water it, mulch it, and then water it some more. I always start off mulching a little bit lighter with just about 2 to 3 inches of mulch, and then once it comes to be a little bit more toward wintertime, like in December, or if I start to see some green growth popping up, I will actually start to layer on a little bit more mulch to where I have closer to about 6 inches or so for the end of winter. So I typically use this easy straw when I mulch. It's just a straw mulch that's 99% weed free, which is really nice because typically you do have to worry about seeds and pulling that stuff up when you do have a straw. But yeah, that's what I use, and it's typically what I do. So I layered on a few inches here, and then I will turn around probably in about a month or so and add some more to it. Feels really good to be making progress on the garden. Honestly, I wish I could have made a little bit more. One thing I need to do is I need to make some decisions when it comes to the garden for next year already, to kind of figure out exactly what space I really have, because my whole issue is I don't want tomatoes over in the area I had them last year over in this in-ground space. I want them more in one of these spaces that's a little bit more sunny. Garlic I put in one of my sunnier spots, and that's where I had it a few years back, and it did really, really well. So I'm almost thinking loofah trellis won't be here next year. I think I might take off a year from squash and loofah, even though I really, really love it. I might make this a bean area, but I might make it a tomato area. It's almost going to make more sense if I do this trellis here a bean area, because that way I won't disturb the garlic and I can plant beans in the interior, have those two things going at the same time, which would be really good. I gotta make a decision on tomatoes. I think I might put tomatoes in these 3 beds here because this gets a lot of sunlight as well. But then I run into the issue on where I'm going to put onions, and honestly I just run out of room so fast. But that's kind of the gist of what's going on. I'm probably going to come back out tomorrow. Either way, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye.